Yeah, thank you. Thank you.
Sorry, anybody?
Not like that. Not like that.
Not yet.
Oh, okay.
You guys ready?
Yes.
Okay, we'll call the meeting to order and we'll start with the pledge to the flag.
Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Public participation. We have two for the solar project. We're gonna get to the solar project here in the engineer's report. So we'll probably hold off on those questions and comments till then, and then we'll go over it with that. You know, we'll bring up the two comments if Scott, when we get to that part here, so that's a little bit later in the meeting here. Approval of the minutes for August 14th. See any questions on that?
Looks good.
I'll make a motion.
Approve.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. Okay, code enforcement report for August. From the zoning hearing board decisions.
I've got a couple things that I want to update the board on. 604 Crisscross Road, we've got a permit application, so we're addressing that situation. 219 Dryville Road, I think you have that zoning determination in front of you tonight. If the board wants to take a position on that, that is, they're seeking a variance from some of the parking requirements. We have, I'm just coming from another meeting, I'm trying to keep my head on straight here. I do have the hearing tomorrow in front of Judge Shifo in Oley for 330 Vine Road finally. The other situation on the Salem Springs Road, that hearing had to be postponed because it was scheduled for the same time with Judge Greth as well. I'll be in Oley tomorrow, so that will be postponed until sometime in early October. That property has not been cleaned up as of this time. Does the board have any questions on any properties in particular?
Do you have the decision for Lone Farmers Drive?
The decision did not come through yet. I wasn't sure if Jeff was gonna discuss anything on that.
I can update you on that. The board did approve that special exception. The only condition that they made contingent on was they want the area that they were gonna spread stone, they want that paved, which is how it should be. That's what the ordinance calls for.
Okay, I just was thought I was missing something. Yeah, I don't have any questions, as long as you keep us abreast of Vine Road and the Salem.
Yep.
Um,
Hopefully we'll have some good news tomorrow. But we should probably just have a 2-minute executive session at the end of the meeting. I'm sure, Chris, you're.
Yeah, I
aware of that.
talked to Michelle about it. She said that it would be appropriate to have a brief discussion with the board in executive session before that hearing.
Correct.
We'll put that in.
And that's all I have. I mean, I can go over a couple things here for you. I think I have that list. We only issued one building permit for the period, a construction value of $60,000. We performed 17 inspections, 8 zoning issues, 7 property maintenance issues. We also issued 7 COs for permit closeouts.
You guys want to comment on 219 Redwood?
So that I really don't. That hearing's scheduled for the end of this month. I believe it would be the last Thursday of the month. If you need any other explanation on that I can give you.
I think that's pretty good.
Yeah, pretty much.
Short of 14 parking spots.
Yeah.
Pardon?
Looks like they're short about 14 parking spots.
Depends on how you look at it.
Of the number of employees.
Yeah, that has the evidence.
What is, go ahead.
Because it's spelled out right where they're asking for. I really don't have the objection.
So we're here to decide.
Yeah, we're okay, just looking zoning hearing.
Okay.
Anything else for Jeff?
No. Till later.
SEO report for August 23rd. 23.
Down to 3. Public.
And
That's pretty good.
what was did they not get pumped or did they not certify that they got pumped?
Brad, they certified them all, correct?
Yeah, they didn't, the one's gonna be handled, the one property, we understand it's gonna be handled, and then there's just 2 that just have not been pumped and they did not pick up their certified. So in order to file citations, we'd have to post the properties and then with also authorization to the board, file citations, so.
Did we send them letters, do they know, or they were sent certified and didn't pick them up?
Yeah, we sent them regular, I wasn't planning on speaking today.
Sorry.
Sorry.
I didn't know who you were, Brad. I know where you are for the other issue, but.
We sent them regular letters to say that they have to be pumped. We send them reminder letters, reminding them that they have to be pumped. Then we send them certified letters after they missed all those deadlines. And now we're down to those, we have to legally send out the notice of violations for the citations, but we're really just trying to reach out to people and just have it pumped. It usually these court cases, you walk in
Right.
to Judge Brett's office and they walk in with their pumping slip and say, oh, I had it pumped yesterday, and then she dismisses it anyway, so it's just a waste of time, so
Right.
that's why.
So I've seen the list. Maybe we'll just reach out from this end.
Okay.
And
We've been trying to find phone numbers, but there's no phone numbers. It's like ancient.
Yeah, Jen sent me an old permit from God knows, I don't know how many years that was. I called that number and it's no longer in service, so.
yeah, it's down to 3. This should be pretty. pretty simple.
Still pretty good though.
Yeah, very good. Let's just talk after the meeting.
Yeah.
I'll reach out.
Okay.
All right, any questions on the SE report? Nope. Make a motion to accept the report. Next time I make the motion, we accept the report.
Second.
All in favor? Police report?
Thank you, sir. Tom Floyd, Fleetwood Police, over August recap. We've had 2,823 miles in Richmond Township showing and responding. We had 77 hours of initial reports, and there was 188 of them. We had 18 crash investigations. We issued 59 traffic citations. We did not issue any non-traffic citations. 13 hours of traffic checks, 16 hours of paperwork, 76 additional vehicle stops, 69 hours, our detective had 69 hours of follow-up for crimes in the township. Officers had 14 hours of court. Our zone 2, on the 2nd, we responded to a firearms violation. We investigated an illegal attempt to buy a firearm by a subject who was prohibited. Our detective was assigned the case, and he has since filed charges. On the 8th, we responded to reckless endangerment. We investigated another laser pointing incident in the area of Churchill Road and Maiden Creek Road. Several subjects were interviewed. Our detectives following up that we had previously made an arrest for one of the prior incidents. In that case, I believe it was on the 29th of September at the magistrate, the preliminary hearing. On the 9th, we investigated the theft of a package containing a cell phone. No suspects at this time. On the 17th, we investigated harassment via phone by an ex-girlfriend, and the victim declined to pursue any charges. Responded to the domestic on the 21st to a township residence for a physical domestic. Both male and female were charged with harassment. In zone 3, the 13th, we responded to a fight involving a firearm. Police responded to the parking lot of the Sheets for 2 males fighting. One male was reported to have displayed a firearm at the victim. The suspect fled to another area. Prior to the police arrival, charges are pending in that case. On the 15th, we responded to a retail theft at the Sheets. Actors have been identified and charges are pending. On the 16th, another retail theft at the Sheets. Actors were once again identified and charges are also pending for that. We responded to multiple mental health crisis calls and several non-criminal domestics in the township. As far as equipment, the new Ford Explorer that will replace the flood damaged cruiser will be delivered the week of the 7th at 18th. And the department is seeking approval to outfit the old cruiser we were going to get rid of for approximately $3,000 for the equipment, which is all used equipment in good shape. This will open up a slot for another patrolman in a vehicle that the chief would be using in the day shift. So when we do speed details and different functions, sometimes we just don't have the cars. So using this old car instead of selling it, will afford him to have a vehicle to use during the day shift. If the vehicle he's been using is used by another patrol officer. Projected activities. Handout approvals for the Main Street Fair and the 150th anniversary has been received and approved. Detours will be in place, however, it is anticipated that traffic in the borough and the township will be impacted on the 30th. For the Main Street event during the morning and then the parade in the afternoon. So just be aware of that date, Saturday, that on the 30th, that traffic might be a little backed up and slow. We will have detours and special for commercial vehicles, et cetera. Anybody have any questions or any comments about any incidents we need to know about or like us to know about? Good.
Thank you.
Appreciate it, thank you. Excuse me, I have to keep it moving.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Regional fire report.
Very consistent.
Town fire company report, they're seeking approval for fire tax for their insurance. The amount of $22,623.85. I make a motion to approve it.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye. So, we have the EMS Lifeline here. They're on the agenda. We were briefly talking before the meeting started, but Kutztown Ambulance is no longer servicing our community or the surrounding communities. And we just asked, Lifeline covers 98% of our territory, and we just want to make sure that we're going to be covered moving forward. And it seems like we are without issues, but you guys just wanted to just repeat in the past, Kutztown has asked us for money, and we have always found it challenging to support a private company for ambulance service with the insurances that are charged, and it might be a little naive on our part with the cost, but that's how it's been in the past. We support the fire company. We have a lot of things. The police, we got a fund, and we had not supported they did a small part of this township that we had met with you 5 years ago. You picked up the coverage here, and then we try and be, as efficient with our funds as we can. But just give us a quick overview of what you can do moving forward and the challenges you guys face for the public, so they're aware.
I'll talk about the operations.
Yeah, you talk about
My
the
name's John
operations.
Shook. I'm the EMS manager for Lifeline. I live in Berks County and I oversee the Berks County units. So everybody knows COVID changed everything. With that, our labor costs went sky high. EMS is in crisis right now. If you guys read, we had 3 EMS services in the state fault this month. Kutztown being one of them. How that has impacted us is we're providing more mutual aid now. Topton Ambulance will be moving an ambulance from Topton to Maxatoni, and we're in constant communications with them. I mean, everybody here, what went down is on August 1st at 3 o'clock, I got a phone call from the County 911 Center that said at 6 o'clock, Kutztown is no longer going to be providing service. What can you do for us? Went into panic mode. I talked to Northern Berks, Topton EMS, so we came up with a plan that we would help each other out, back each other up. And it's working pretty well, actually. But Topton is going to be covering the majority of the Maxatoni in that Kutztown corridor. But they're in the same boat we are. We're all nonprofits. We're all competing for the same pool of paramedics. We're all working short-staffed, and the advantage we have is we're a little bit pretty good of an organization, and it gives me the uncomfortable conversations about my overtime budget, but it is what it is. Just like the police departments, we have to provide that service. So going forward, we looked at the numbers, and our volume in Richmond Township is pretty consistent. We average between 40 and 60 911 calls a month. Our average response time is 9 minutes in the township. And we're coming from Fleetwood Fire. We keep one ambulance there 24/7 and a second one during the day, 7 to 7 to cover the shift changes. So, we're covering primarily what we came down here was Richmond, Fleetwood, Rockland, and part of Russell. That's the area that we cover. And then we split, Kutztown covered the upper part. And then they also had another part down towards Decca a little bit. Not in the township, but I guess Maxitoni in that area. So we're working with Topton. They're trying their best to do what they can. They're trying to help staff. But yeah, we're at that point that, we're not going to go out of business, anytime soon. But and all the health systems are in that financial crisis like everybody else. So we're trying to be good stewards with our money, with the lifeline. And I'll let Keith talk a little bit about, trying to get some municipal support.
Yeah. So again, I'm Keith McMinn. I'm the director of Lifeline. I'm based at Hershey Medical Center. And you want to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Francis Vince. I'm the medical director for the whole Lifeline operation.
So John explained it very well. First of all, we want to continue to service the community. We're going to continue to service the community like we are. But we have asked, many municipalities have asked us the same question: how can we prevent what happened in Kutztown? Is that going to happen in our township? We have the advantage of having a big health system behind us, right? That somewhat is our safety net. That being said, we do ask municipalities to contribute what they can to help offset some of our costs associated with providing an ambulance service. Rising fuel costs, rising labor costs, while what we actually get per transport to transport a patient, what we get from Medicare, Medicaid, or private insurance is why the EMS system is in crisis. Those other than Medicaid, there has not been an adjustment in years. On average, of all the transports we do, we roughly get around $400 for transport per transport. You can imagine that our costs to staff that ambulance, for the fuel, for the heart monitor that's on board, are much more than that. So, we do as municipalities start to plan for their budgets, we ask them to consider us. In some of our municipalities, we have an agreement of a per capita fee, a per head fee, and if there is interest from the township in discussing those things, we would appreciate that opportunity in the future.
Yeah, we appreciate everything's, out of sight with cost everywhere you turn, and I think we've created that, some of it to the degree, the times we live in.
Yeah.
But are you guys, or is Lifeline, you said nonprofit? What's that relationship with the hospital? The hospital nonprofit?
Hospital's nonprofit. Our division of Lifeline is owned and operated by Hershey Medical Center, which is a nonprofit. Right now, they are doing a study to see, do we belong under Hershey or do we belong under the health system? But both of them we're all nonprofit. At the end of the day, we're all owned by Penn State University.
Penn State Health is a nonprofit health
Yeah.
system. Our chief executive officer is on the Penn State University President's Council, but we are separate from Penn State University. But obviously the branding and all those types of things, we are Penn State. But it is met several years ago, our attachment to Penn State is the College of Medicine, where we train doctors, which is in Hershey, Pennsylvania, attached to the Hershey Medical Center. So we are a separate health system.
So it's a hospital-based system in contrast to a private organization like AMR or a municipal fire service that provides fire, cross-trained dual response, fire and EMS, which is what I'm actually more used to coming from Ohio, where most of the services were fire-based and they were supported by taxes and billing. So.
And Kutztown was a for-profit.
Yeah, so it's just an education for us. I mean, we support the fire company and the police now, and we have for a long time, which is majority of our budget. And I guess it's just an education. You know, we see nonprofit for hospitals and stuff. It's hard for me to, you know, understand that when our health premiums are going up 16% today.
Yeah, they don't give that to us.
You know, I understand that. It's
I
just-
work for them and I don't understand the not-for-profit part either.
You know what I mean? So it's just hard. It's an education, I guess, for us. And one thing we don't want to have is not have coverage. You know, so I'm more than willing to at least sit down with you guys and get some information with what you guys are looking at, and at least have that discussion, the education part, because
So I think this might help a little bit with, in contrast to a fire-based, excuse me, or a private service, Lifeline's principal mission actually is for the transport of hospitalized patients. So if, you know, you're discharged from the hospital and you need an ambulance to take you home, the nursing home or wherever, so that's a large percentage of what we do. It is a large percentage of what we bill for. We have a responsibility contractually and to some extent ethically, although, you know, some of the administrators might question that, to provide 911 coverage to select communities with whom we have an agreement. So we are actually heavily subsidized by our transport activities. But as Keith mentioned earlier, they still don't come anywhere near, even with that money coming in, near what it costs to operate the ambulance and the crew for 24 hours. And, you know, so as again, for me, coming from the outside, and please, this is not meant in any form of disrespect, but having grown up in a tax-based system where the community supports the municipal services of police, fire, and EMS, I find it interesting that here there's such a, you know, a system where basically communities are getting it and none of their people are paying for it directly. I'm not advocating that, you know, we're here to do a land grab or anything like that, but it is kind of interesting for me to watch that system. And I don't know how long it's going to be sustainable.
agreed. And we had the same issue with state police. You know, we funded and the police, and they do a good job. But the state police are neighboring municipalities, they get it for free. You know, I mean,
Yeah.
or not free, but they don't pay any additional. You know, we all pay tax, we all support the state police. How is that sustainable for us to support our own police department? It's a struggle in this state for sure. So
Everything comes with a cost.
everything comes with a
Then the
cost.
economy and all the uncertainty doesn't help either, you know.
Yeah, it's very challenging. So we appreciate you covering the township, first of all, and what you do, because we need that. We want you there at the other end if there's an emergency, but I would be willing just to have some numbers and what your thoughts are. Maybe we can set up a meeting, you know, outside the public, just to educate us.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I think it'd be more of an education.
And I think we're just asking for the discussion. That's
Yeah.
really, let's
Yeah,
have a discussion.
And shame on EMS as a whole. I don't think we've done real good on educating. You know, and if you look at the fire departments, the fire companies, you know, the state does something to them, the next day there's 300 fire trucks circling the Capitol. Because with EMS, we're like, here we go again, you know?
Right.
So, yeah, you're fortunate with your fire companies here as well. You have good coverage.
We have very good coverage, and it's all volunteer.
Yeah.
And it still
Yeah.
comes at a cost, but they do a phenomenal job.
Yeah, we
We have-
work with them every day, so I think.
Right, if we'd have to pay them, you know, it would be huge cost. So we're very thankful for that, but we want to be conscious of the money we spend for everything.
And the
So,
sophistication is added to the cost. I mean, if you look at what both the fire service or EMS was doing years ago, I mean, you know, now we have monitors that allow you to do 12 DDKG transmitted to the hospital while they're assessing your oxygenation status, et cetera. But that comes at a price, except that we as a society demand it.
Right.
And we expect it, but at the same point in time, there's a bill at the end of the day,
Yeah,
you know.
you're right. So the education part is something I'd be open for, at least have to sit down and have a discussion and we get something on the books here.
Sure, you gonna set that up, John?
Absolutely.
So I appreciate you guys
We're
coming.
happy to answer any questions and we'll be blunt. and
Anybody-
forthright with you.
Does anybody have any questions on what's going on?
Could I ask one, just out of
Absolutely.
quick curiosity, you were saying about what the insurance pays and stuff for
Right.
transports. when you bill somebody, is that all you accept then is?
Yes, we do not balance bill. So if we bill you $2,000.
Yeah.
And Medicare says, we're gonna pay $360. That's what we pay. The only time you should get a bill from us is for your co-pays and deductibles.
Okay.
That we can't change because that's an agreement between you and that insurance company. But that's how it's done. Other ambulance services, what they do is they sell a subscription. And they say in lieu of that, we won't balance bill. We don't balance bill to begin with.
Mhm. Okay.
So yeah, the only bill you should get from us is your copay and deductible. And, you know, there again, being part of the health system, that's one of our advantages. We have contracts with just about every insurance out there, which is great. It kind of is our downfall because a lot of the other services don't accept that. You have to pay the $2,000. With us, that's what happens. Whatever the contractor rate is, they pay us, and if there's a copay or deductible, that's the only bill you should get from us.
The subscription thing's challenging. I know, there were subscriptions in the past and I signed up for a subscription because I had insurance. My insurance paid it, but the subscription had nothing for me. I was having the subscription to pay for people that didn't have insurance. And that's just, I do enough of that with the health insurance. Of course. So that's,
But it was peace of mind
It was
if
peace of
something
mind.
ever did happen.
Yeah.
but the insurance covered it.
Yeah.
So I had the subscription, did absolutely nothing for me. So it's just a challenge and that's part of the education. You know what I mean?
Yeah, we've kicked around, do we want a membership? Do we not? You know, how do we do that?
And actually, the subscription services in this area of Pennsylvania, they've really changed significantly over the last 10 years. The return rate is like generally 8% of the mailings actually return. It's pretty low. It used to be significantly more.
Coming from where I was actually surprised to see, because I always thought subscription services were a historical footnote in EMS and fire, and I came out here and it's like, oh my God, I'm hearing advertisements for subscription services.
Does anybody else have questions?
Yeah, please, anybody?
That's why we're here.
Well, if you're a nonprofit organization,
Yes.
if you run a subscription service, that would be actually, and somebody had paid for it, would that not be considered like a donation or something that'd be like a tax write-off?
Do you want to make one?
I'm asking, just wondering how that works, you know? I mean, would it be better,
That was one of the questions
a
we
selling
asked.
point to people?
One of the questions we asked was that very question. Legal gives us two different answers. One, they say yes because you're nonprofit. The other one, they say no because you're basically paying for a service. So I'm we have an attorney over here. You can probably tell us.
Don't put him on the spot.
Don't do that.
So we'll set up a meeting and see what we can get as far as education wise. That was always our holdup, funding a private organization. You know, nonprofit, I think it's a little different. I feel a little more comfortable that, not saying that it's just different to support something that's a private organization, a for-profit. It's hard to sell that to the residents. So,
And we're just asking for the discussion. We're not going anywhere. We will continue to provide really good service to the township from Fleetwood. It is
I
not.
think we all three of us here realize that it comes at a cost. And we also realize that people take it for granted.
and people abuse it.
And they do.
You're not a taxi service.
Yeah.
It should be used when it's in.
And that's
And
one of the other downfalls is if your insurance company finds it's not medically necessary, we get nothing.
Yeah. So we appreciate you coming. Thank
Thank
you.
you. Thank you for your time.
Thank you.
Thank all of you for
Absolutely,
the time. I
thank
hope
you.
we didn't displace anyone and make you all late for dinner or something.
Okay, approval of the Saucony Creek Ruin, Naval Mistress 5K. I think it's pretty standard from.
Yeah, it looks like they have.
Sure. Have a chance to look at it.
Yeah. Who prepared that identification?
They actually sent it over.
They have last year's date on it. Can we ask them to make it for 2023?
I don't know if they just cut and pasted last year's. or what they did.
Okay, yeah.
So I would say condition upon them giving us a 2023 document, it would be acceptable.
I also asked them to send us over a updated certificate of insurance when that happens, because it's going to expire the end of this month. So
And
When is he?
what's the date?
that is October that they're having it. So,
This won't work either.
but he did say he will send over that, so we can have
Okay.
both of those.
So they're doing a 5K like they do every year. What did you say the date was?
It's in October. I'd have to get the exact date on that. I thought I had that listed. Apologies.
Let's see if it's. But it's what they've done in the past. They go, part of it's on their land, part of it's on private land, but they just out, push down the road a little bit, out Sheridan, Baldy a little bit, then comes back, goes through the private land. Yeah, it's been every year. We've never had an issue, so, I make a motion that we accept this contingent on them changing the dates, putting a date in when they're gonna have it, and updating the insurance.
I'll say.
All in favor? I don't have any old business, so we'll go to the engineer's report, and we'll start with the solar farm. We'll get an update from you, Scott, and then we have two citizens that have questions.
Sure, so, part of where the last update was their request to change the soil amendments. And as you know, that request came in, we told them it's gonna be a formal request and it's getting completely resubmitted. It's part of the reason we put a hold on work. They have since come back with new soil testing at the depths that they need to be at. They've revised any of their reports that have to do with that, the soils reports. And as of today, actually, when we got that and looked at it, this is something that's been going on. I've had Gary involved from the beginning, anything to do with the soils. He's been looking at it as well, and they have that brought up to speed to show that everything exceeds, and I can say exceeds because that's what the numbers were showing, from what the original report was that we gave the approval for the site on. They've also gone out, and it's kind of in the far southern corner of the property along Weaver Road as it passes under. There's a corner down there that they gave a trial run really for the conservation district. They requested as well, just to show that they can get their 20-inch minimum ripping, add their amended soils, which at this point is really sand and then fertilizer added as well. But they then do an 8-inch tilling of the soils with that amendment and seed it and mulch it. And it honestly went very well. They didn't encounter any rocks, so that's part of the concern once they move. But they still have to start that and get moving on that.
So they haven't started that yet?
They, only that corner. So there's that to be done on pretty much the site.
Did they have the underground infrastructure in that location?
So they have some underground infrastructure in areas, but not that I know of in that area, but they say the closest is not going to be in conflict with the ripping that they have to do. That was part of their concern, why they wanted to change it, which then made them go into verifying and making sure that's out of the way. So that was really the biggest concern we had, but the reports and everything have verified that they're going to be able to accomplish what they said they were going to be able to accomplish. All of the site work minus that soil amendments is pretty much complete. I think all the equipment is at this point installed as well. They've been going through certain testings. That's kind of out of my realm. It's more the building permits, zoning permits that are issued for that. They're running through that and trying to check off the list. the one thing that we're making clear here, that they know those soil amendments are tied to the zoning permit, which is ultimately the operation of the site in general. So everything is on hold until that point. So once that gets completed and verified, that's what we're waiting for, so.
Do they have a schedule in mind for completing the soil amendments?
I don't know if I've seen it on paper, but I do know that the contractor, the only local contractor they've had is H&K. H&K, who I talk with regularly, they see 30-day minimum before they're done with doing the soil amendments once they get loaded, unless it goes a lot faster, but I don't think so, because it's pretty much the one equipment doing the whole thing. So I think they have 30 days before that, start to finish at least. So,
As I understand what you said, there won't be any building permit issued until they have satisfactorily completed all the soil amendments. Is that-
I think, as I understand, the building permit may be, or is that still going to be part of it?
The building permit, the CO could be issued for that, but they can't produce energy until the zoning permit would be, or the CO would be issued at that time. We pretty much finished all the electrical inspections. Jim Nyder and myself were out there pretty heavy the last 2 weeks. They're testing the system, but they can't have energy go past the inverters. So they're basically testing their DC power. So nothing has been converted yet to the AC. We did a preliminary inspection of the substation. Well, that looks pretty good. So there's a couple things that can tie up from that yet, but we have a call with them tomorrow, I believe, at 2 o'clock, or Wednesday, I believe it is. Just to get a little bit, they want to know where we're coming from as far as what we want to see done before we release anything. And the ultimate thing here is they have to finish the soil amendments. They have to get that completed. So nothing will happen until that's finished with that zoning CO.
Couple other things too. There's a handful of things that have to be done just in general to finish out the project, and there's also a couple things that have come up during the construction that they wanted to get everything cleared up on the soil amendments, where they were on that before they moved into, I'd call it the beginning of the punch list that I have, but there's a handful of things, the drainage around the bridge, the railroad bridge. Until you get into construction, some things you don't really see until it's operating in that area. North of the bridge needs work. The fence itself needs changes. The fence at their spillway, they have issues there that they're still working. That's a fabrication issue.
Saw that right off.
Yeah, and they have that. They've been notified of that. The site in general, just the general cleanup, the seeding. I know along Weaver Road, that whole area that they disturbed there, that's another thing that we have to do. But I mean, the roadways in general and anything in the right of way, that's part of the final list on the escrow, that there's money held for that. I think the wear that they've done on Weaver has led to, that's gonna be a big issue for them when they get there. But, yeah, there's a handful of things after the soil amendments too. It's the conversion of the basin still has to occur. To that point, the Conservation District, they've been involved. They've been still asking, I think since the middle of July, they gave them a punch list of their own to say, here's where you're out of compliance. And they tend to be very flexible with trying to reach those. They have been completing those, but they keep doing site inspections and listing a handful of things that are still to be completed. One of the things, and it was something that I've talked with Floyd on, is the outlet structure for their site and the pipe that just goes under the road in general. There's some work there that they need to do. I'm getting Conservation District on board to see what they feel needs to be done. And then on top of that, that's kind of where I'm gonna pile on, that I think they have created some washouts that weren't there before. I'd like them to take the lead since they have that open permit that they're enforcing, but regardless, we can correct that and get that where it's not holding water or sitting for any reason. Because that does seem to be something that has been happening a little too regularly. So, yeah, that's just
Yeah, I
kind of
don't know if we can
general.
make a fair judgment of the runoff there until they finish the amended soils.
Yeah.
I'm certainly hoping that we see something far beyond where it is right now.
Yeah, there is some just work on the structures in general that with the water that we've had, the storms, when it's all said and done, I think they just need to come in and clean it up and reseed it, and make sure there isn't any standing water, because it seems to be a kind of an issue right now. Part of it is too, they have silt, they have socks that they put in certain pipes to try to pull some of the silt out of it. I don't necessarily know if it's too effective, but it's their attempt at trying to do it. I don't know. I know there's still issues downstream with water as well, but as you know, we've tried to reach out to DEP to try to have them follow up a little better than they have to date. I have not heard back from that last correspondence that we sent out, but I mean, we can follow up with them. Yeah, hope you don't have to after sending a letter like that, but we can do so.
What's the practical deadline to get things stabilized and seeded that it's gonna be meaningful this year?
I think it's sometime in October where the conservation district says if you don't meet these deadlines, then we won't close out your permit until next year. I think realistically, we've had some weather that allows for it to go beyond that anymore, but I don't think they care as far as the closing out the permit. I just know we're trying to push them to do it so they can get the seeding and get the grass going.
So there was no response from DEP after you sent that letter?
I haven't seen.
No, that was sent out a few days before the holiday, but there has been no response.
That is very disappointing. If it would be me or you, we'd be at our doorstep.
Not surprising. But it is disappointing.
I guess we gotta follow up on other ends then. Maybe
Well,
with
we-
the senators.
Yeah, that's what, Shoes copy, but she.
Yes.
Yes.
Tell them to follow up with her report.
All right, 428 Mertz Road, Ron. Or no. Oh, I can't even see your last name. Sorry, I know who you are.
Couple questions. Chris hit the one on the head on the nail when he asked, how long can we wait till this stuff gets established? And our ground freezes and the grass is not growing and we are gonna have a mess. When was this ever gonna end? Do these permits, and my next question, and if you think about this one, my next one. I understand you guys gave a permit on my side of the road, but poles have been up in place. There's been no construction since June. No grass has been seeded, no cleanup. It has never been mowed. It's been growing weeds since the day you guys gave me the permit. When is this ever gonna stop? I do not have the authority to go there and take care of a permit that you guys have issued. But there are big dirt areas open, washing, eroding. It's never been restored, no grass is seeded, no straw, 4x4s, whatever, you name it, it is in my pasture. I still do not have a pasture. So is this gonna be next year? When is this gonna end?
When you were in here not last month, 2 months ago, so at that meeting is when they had gone out there and graded and cleaned up, and it was the same thing that you had sent, that at least eliminated some of the piles. I can't say it was all of them, but
I can show you the rocks and the headboards. They never even put grass seed.
Nothing.
so they didn't pick up any.
No. They came in with a mini excavator and picked up the piles, and if you call that grading and restoring, then I guess that's what you guys
They
call
just
grading
picked
and
up the
restoring, but I need to put fence up.
So we can definitely ask them to do that. I mean, it's on, you have some type of agreement with them there, and I don't know where that stands either, but
But I can't overrule your permit,
not overruling the permit at all.
because if you don't close it out, they just mingle on.
So the permit actually is good for the life of the project. I mean, we can ask them to stabilize and clean it up and do that. There's no question. I didn't talk to Ron since last meeting. So we can ask him to do
They're
that.
not doing soil amendments on his side,
No,
so I don't see why.
they could clean it up
Start the-
if they're done. But if, yeah, I didn't know. I haven't
Meta
asked them
said they're
directly if they were
done,
done.
and they came in and took care of all their,
Reseeded.
reseeded the grass, did what they needed to do. But not Healstone. Nobody's ever come back. They
Who
even
did?
called me, they even called me.
PBNL, you said? Was the-
Meta.
Oh, Meta.
They even called me to ask what grass seed I wanted and whatnot back in June, but here we are in end of September. And this stuff is soon gonna grow. I mean, if this goes to middle of October, we're not gonna have any kind of vegetation whole lot.
I would think that has to be done before they get their permit to operate the whole project.
Oh, absolutely. I mean, that's part of the punch list of it, well. And honestly, Ron, you can give me a call and have me, if you have a list of those things, I'm happy to get them on there. But again, it's,
And I'm not sure
until
what
I
the
know
permit
when they're
covers.
done over there, it's tough to know when they're gonna come back in or what they're doing.
But the concern about the grass is valid too, with the soil amendments and the seeding. If that stuff's not finished and growing and doing what is, they're not gonna wanna wait till spring, right? They're gonna push back, but they gotta know we can't release this till it's 100%.
You get frozen ground,
Yeah,
it's gonna blow
absolutely.
that soil right out.
I mean, understand too that the last time we were here, we wanted them to stop work on everything to make sure we knew that this was gonna be feasible, so we did that. So we do have that same, we want it done, but we gotta make sure it's there, and that was kind of the request from everybody here.
Yeah.
So that was part of why I shut them down,
Right.
I understand.
and until they got that on paper and showed us that that was feasible still, and that what they were gonna do was gonna accomplish what we were trying to do here, we didn't allow them to keep moving with anything other than to get the grass mowing, which even that took
And they haven't
forever.
done a thing on our side.
So,
And it's high again.
Even over there, I mean, if you consider 12 inches, it's well over 12 inches again.
so,
I think you should express our sense of urgency for this whole thing. For both sides of the
Board's
road.
gonna affect them.
no,
I mean, every day that thing's ready to go and not
Well, I
producing
think
electric.
you should advise them that there won't be any, UL.
so that's been a pretty ongoing, so only about 2 weeks ago, did they bring up anything about energizing? And at that time, when they said, hey, we'd like you to come do the training for the energizing, that was when our company as a whole, mostly the building permit side, said, you guys haven't asked us to check anything off the boxes to make sure you're done with your inspections to be able to do so. Part of that has led to you can't energize and produce until everything. This is tied to a zoning permit in a way that they're not used to, so we made sure that they're fully aware of that. And that is a very time-consuming issue on their end, but they are understanding of that. I mean, they want to talk details this week about some of what they need to do as far as testing on site, but there's nothing leaving that site until they get this project in general buttoned up on zoning, which is the soil amendments and the site is operating. I agree, right? When you get into the seeding, grass and all that, I was urging them to do that, but at the same time realizing they still needed to update all their soil reports and verifications that it's gonna function.
And I would agree with you on that. The only thing I don't agree with is you cannot have open dirt, unseeded, with no strawing, no stormwater matting, no nothing. That has nothing to do with going forward. That is something you caused that should have been addressed right away, in my eyes. Because I go to Maxatone and I have one little spot, and he's on me like a hawk. So where we're at here is we're really slipping, because that to me is something that you gave them a little bit of leniency on not having to put all the water retention stuff in, because it was a small area, but then they disturbed it and never reseeded it. That could have been done 2 months ago if they're done,
So,
and obviously they're done.
I mean, I can show you the emails where we're urging them every week and copying the conservation district on it and saying, this isn't completely stabilized, do you agree? And they say, well, re-inspect it. I mean, they're holding that open permit for the construction activities, and we keep urging them. And the issue here is I keep trying not to overstep the boundary where DEP is holding the permit for that site construction while this is going on. And if we do, we then don't have their support because they're saying they're not in violation.
What
And
about,
that's what we've continued.
what
to
about
get.
the Merce Road side?
What's
You
that?
know, what about on the Merce Road side that where they're done? They have a permit from us.
If they're done, we can ask them to get in there and close that out. I mean, they can say, well, we're gonna be doing more work in there, that's why we haven't seeded it. But if they're done, they're done. I mean, you know better than I,
They're
they're
They've been
completely
done.
done.
They told us in July they're done with it. They did.
Yeah, they gotta finish it up, but that seems to be their course, just to push it off. I don't know, I hope they're taking it serious, because,
Well, they can push it off, but they're not gonna operate.
right. I
But it
hope
doesn't
they're,
help me get my fence up in my grass.
yeah, I hope they understand, that's our leverage, Joe. I hope they understand that that's not
Well,
gonna
they
happen.
do.
And if it's winter time and the grass isn't gonna stick,
Yeah,
it'll be spring.
I wouldn't know how you guys could give them a zoning permit without knowing if it's all done and being able to work. Once we get into November and the grass is established and you give the zoning permit and it washes out in January, February, what do you got to stand on?
Well, I think right now we're heading into the prime growing season to plant grass. So this is an ideal time for them to get this situation addressed, get it seeded, strawed, and I think we'll be fine at this point. We're getting some rain. Hopefully we don't get the gully washers that we've had recently, but we have no control over that. But I think temperature wise, this is a prime grass growing season, so as long as they get jumping on this.
When you
right
meet
away.
with them, just make sure they know.
Yep.
I mean, they had 2 months to finish up on the other side. I think it seems very lax on some
Well,
of
we've
the stuff
been
on there.
leading, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink. I think we're doing what we can to enforce this idea that they're not operating. And I think there's a big financial incentive for them to be operating. So
I would
hopefully-
think it was, but from their actions, it doesn't seem like they take it serious, Jeff. I'm
Well-
not saying that you're not doing your part. I'm just making it clear, it does not seem they take us seriously from day one. So just make sure, when they're coming at you for the permit, no, we can't do this, we gotta produce electric because it's an L.
I agree.
Do you know anything about them? They're gonna work on the retention ponds. Like, we get the soil amendment done, it's still blowing through all those retention ponds. Is there gonna be any work to them this year yet, or are they just gonna be open?
They honestly, as far as the sequence goes for the approved permit, they have to do all their soil amendments and then they can do their final stabilization of the ponds. Some of them don't, I think there's only one of them, it has the substation there across from Weaver's. That one, they could go ahead and do that probably a little earlier, but the rest of them are supposed to have the soil amendments complete before they go in there and start. Those, basically at the bottom of those, they till 8 inches of it. And that's where they do the same soil amendments, they just don't have to do the same ripping that they do in the larger areas, but they're supposed to wait until the very end to do those.
Is it still, that pipe still where it's gonna be when it comes across Fleetwood Lions Road, or is that gonna get raised to hold more water?
No, the pipe stays where it's at, but that's where I'm saying it's just, that's holding water where it shouldn't be holding water the way it is. That's where they're gonna have to get rid of that water. I think it's just a matter of recheck the grades, and if they have to dig it all out and put it back down, then that's what they have to do. And that's,
Seems to me they have a great issue there.
yeah, I think at that outlet, everything's pretty flat, but I think some of it's settled over time and they
Yeah, something.
brought equipment in to finish it, but
It just seems like that pipe should be higher, so that the actual pond will work, hold enough water back to let it seep in. It
The
doesn't
outlet
hold much
pipe.
water, the outlet pipe, and it's running out over too soon, in my opinion, when I look at it. Because there's not gonna be enough water held back to let the pond do its job.
yeah, there is a difference to the outlet structure once it gets converted into the final. just like that upper pond. That's supposed to, that pipe's got a little bit of a change to it. It's just now it's in the construction phase, so it's a little different. I don't think it's operating very well either. It just seems like it's not holding back as much as it should, but again, it's until it's finally completed, that's when it's supposed to be the big change. But
See, that whole thing is no longer retention. That's seepage. They don't want you retaining water for a period of time. It's supposed to stay there. And then the idea is that they put the amended soil in and the water seeps into the ground. That's why it's so massive. But you're right, if they have the pipes too low, it's just gonna go right through. And you can look at it and say, it doesn't look right to me. But maybe they're gonna do something with that pipe. I didn't see.
I mean,
Usually they put a gate there or they put a turn and to set their elevation. But it's the same height that's always been done.
I think the other thing too is a pretty unique, different project where we aren't always asking for verification, a survey, of that kind of thing. I think it's pretty well warranted here to say,
Yeah.
just show us that you have this before we start moving in. Usually the as-bilt's the very last thing they give you, but it wouldn't hurt in this situation just to make sure we're all seeing the same thing.
It's just gonna make a very dangerous Foley Road, this one, if we don't get into it now. It's flooded now. So,
It's like a pass through now.
It's been less than pleasurable working with them. Been very, very disappointing.
But they're disappointing. They just don't care about the details, you know?
Were they supposed to put a retention pond in on the other side of the railroad tracks also?
And one of the original designs showed it, but then they put the two larger ponds on the same side of the roadway, same side of the railroad tracks.
It seems like when it does give all that rain, that's where it really usually washes right through there.
Again, I think that the soil amendments are supposed to take that in and offset that. We'll see. If not, I mean, if it doesn't operate the way it should be or by eye, it looks like something's there. You can always make changes and we'll deal with that, but.
Well, I know from the past, a lot of that water on that side, the bridge isn't from the field, it's from up off the road and everything else.
There is, I think when the construction's all said and done, there's a pretty decent sized project to be completed under the bridge and to address that water that's coming from the other side, you're saying,
Yeah.
not the field side, so. Yeah, that was part of the original design to have that happen after the construction of the site build.
Our goal is to be better than when they started. Right now,
Sure ain't there.
it's not there for sure. That was our goal from day one. Because there was an issue before the whole project even was there.
Yeah, yeah, there was always a lot of water through there.
Elaine, do you have anything to add that wasn't answered or questions or?
Yeah, I just wanted to address that whole, I had sent you pictures. Yesterday, when we had that rain, we had drove down to the bridge. Those sandbags that are down at the bridge there, all they were doing were retaining the water under the bridge. The water could not go through there. They weren't even, the water couldn't even go into that first retention pond or that first area that they think is gonna catch water. Those sandbags were that high in that area that they weren't. Now today, when the little bit of water that went over it, that it was pouring down through that way. But those sandbags, those are catching the water and damming it up under the bridge, and we can't have that.
Yeah, I think once they're hopefully finished the project, they'll have that squared away.
Yeah, and I mean, if that's, I think what the sandbags you're talking about, that's more their silt socks that it's supposed to be per the ENS design. If that's holding it up, I know I've seen it after the storms and it's still sitting there. But if it's holding it up that much where if you can't get through it, then
Right,
You
and
can ask them
I
to move
sent
it
those
into the
pictures to
pond.
Brian. It was raining, of course, yesterday, but, it was damming it underneath the bridge instead of letting it come through into It's that make-believe pond that they have the first one there.
Yeah, many times what happens is the silt, they don't stake them properly. So the silt socks, they take off.
Yeah, I'll look. I don't know if that one was part of the original design or if that was after everything was put in place. And if it was, then I think the better thing to do is move that into the pond instead of having it sit there.
I
Yeah,
just want to reiterate, the weeds are getting high again. It's getting bad. And yesterday's rain, now I've never seen that. Now, we've been out there 38, almost 39 years. Yesterday, coming back Weaver's Road toward our house, the water was actually draining out of the field there and coming down the road and then going into Kearns. I've never seen it come from that side of the field and cross over the road. I know that Kearns gets a lot from the side of the field that we live on, but I've never seen it come across the road like it did yesterday. So I'm not sure that something is correct there either. I mean, if I've never seen it in almost 39 years, it's probably never happened.
If you're looking at the properties on Weaver at the railroad bridge, it's draining.
Coming down that hill, almost where the farm is, there's,
I
and
suspect.
where they have like
diverted by the
their
silt
roadway, where they have their roadway that they're supposed to use. It was coming like out of their roadway and
The
going across
driveway
the road.
that they have
Yeah,
just after the farm.
yes, if you're going back toward the culvert, yes.
Yeah, I don't know how it's-
It just wasn't making it into the seepage pond. I suspect the silt socks were diverting it down the other side of the road. I saw that before once. But that's all maintenance. It's just something they have to do.
Yeah, it should be the draining that way. I'll look at that one as well.
And I just wanted to, I mean, and I'm hoping that this gets fixed, that, there's a pipe that goes across that in front of Kearns, well, it's not quite in front of, but it's up toward Weaver's Harder, that comes from Kearns and goes across under the road and then drains like by that wagon shed. And it goes down into the field there. That pipe, with them bringing back their huge equipment all the time, I mean, that pipe, that road is very, very rough there. So that would be one of the items that hopefully would be addressed, that they have to fix.
That would be right after the Weaver's driveway on, right in that area.
Yes, that pipe significantly dropped. Something, I mean, I don't know.
I want to say, I think the final design is that they cut that pipe on their side of the property and then it drains into these ponds and handles that water. I think that's what the final design is for that. But if it's in the roadway and that's an issue with the pipe, then at the end of it, we'll have, if you can't just see it from the road when you inspect it, we'll have them televise it if it's damaged or anything, then that'll just be part of what they have to replace.
Because that definitely wasn't made to haul all this big equipment back there, I'm sure, years ago when the township put that in.
Yeah, definitely something to no, it's good to know, and then we can add that to the list of things to check before it's closed out.
I think that's it.
May I offer a suggestion?
Yeah.
If the conservation district's not responding to your emails, I'd give Mr. Drunkenmiller a direct call. Sometimes you just have to be a squeaky wheel. There's guys.
He was here.
Just like all of us are.
He was here, and his comment was, we don't enforce any of the rules, we just make suggestions. Which is extremely ridiculous statement to make here, in my opinion. Because, I mean, and now we send a letter to the DEP and try and get them engaged, and we copied everybody and their brother crickets. So it's just super disappointing. Why they're not more aggressive? It would be anyone that's in here in the room, they'd be on us with 2 feet, and here they are just. I don't understand. It's just a mystery to me. But we're gonna reach out. We're gonna follow up on this letter. But Mr. Drunkenmiller was here, heard our concerns, and he flat out said they don't have no enforcement ability. They just make suggestions. The DEP has to come in. Well, they got to step it up to the DEP then. So
Yeah, Dean, the site inspector for the conservation district is Elijah, but Dean and Tom Forsyth, the conservation district engineer, on record, they've all been copied on every email we've been sending. Everything that we've sent to these guys, they've been on there for it. And short of, we'll be out and make our follow-up inspections. When we did shut down, they did push back a bit, and that's when they were forcing them into, you've got to get on top of this and start addressing some of it. That was probably the best reaction we've seen from them, but it's just been slow in coming to get the final.
Yeah. Slow and coming is right.
All right, we'll just try and stay on top of it the best we can, but just so that they're clear, this is not gonna end well for them if they don't comply.
To the end of the seeding and the work, I mean, they are at the point where we did just say, look, you finally provided that stuff. I mean, we can start pushing them and say, get these guys out there and start going. Because I agree with you, and I was trying to push them before I realized, wait, I can't push them because they haven't showed us they can't comply yet. So as soon as they have, that's the site work I'm talking about. Your side of the road, definitely, they can get in there tomorrow and do that if they wanted to. But we'll get in there and have them do it as soon as we can get them to do it.
Is there any way that you can shut them down for some other reason until they do certain things to make it better before they're allowed to continue to
Well,
get to that point where they can generate?
the work that's remaining is the things that people are talking about that they're concerned about. So
Yeah.
I don't think it's helpful to shut them down at this point. I think the leverage we have is not giving them a permit to operate. And that's really the thing that we have to hang our hat on at this point.
Everything, we shoot ourselves in the foot if we did that.
Right.
Especially for the time, clock's ticking. I agree.
All right, Sheets store rebuild time extension.
They submitted a extension. Since the initial submittal they've had work to do. Understand it has a lot to do with stormwater, but most of the traffic on their end of what they're trying to clean up internally. But until then, their extension was till November 30th. Thank you, November 30th. So they've submitted that as an extension for their project. Chris, do you typically have that? And
Yeah,
we accept?
I would recommend a motion by the board to accept the time extension.
I make that motion.
Oh, sorry.
All in favor? Supplemental road work bid.
So we did put this, it's currently out, it won't be open until Friday. But that's basically 3 different roads. That was the overlay of Richmond Road, start to finish with the first option. Mole Road, basically on that, we originally had an idea of some kind of a reconstruction that we were looking at, a small, quick version of it, but after looking at that, the best answer is to give it a heavy leveling, get in there, level it out, and then top it. Given the amount of traffic on that road, that is going to be the best bang for the buck there. And then the other one is the overlay on Meadow Drive. We're just waiting to see where the numbers come back. So I believe on that, the number, Alan Myers came in pretty low with their original bid. I think they're somewhere around 140, I believe.
Something like that.
The question is, we bid this saying that we're not anticipating awarding all of them, but possibly 1 or 2 streets based upon budget constraints. So the contractor's aware of that. The question I would have is that the number we're looking at or not? And I don't necessarily know if we have to answer that here, but
We
I don't know
can
the best way to try to get it.
Is the work all completed for the original contract?
The work is, yeah. We have
So we're not expecting any change orders or extra expenses on that?
No, they've signed off on it.
And what's the timeline here? What's our timeline to do this with the weather?
So
Until we approve it?
If we open next week, or at the end of the week, you could turn it around by beginning of next month to say paperwork's complete, they can get in there and do the work. PennDOT says you can't put down wearing course after October 31st. They've asked that question, and we said, we want it done in 2023, but that's not the cutoff since we're not using liquid fuels, that as long as you meet the temperatures like PennDOT's requiring, you can still have some leeway that it could be a couple weeks after there if the weather's good. So really not much more than probably about 60 days, and that's pushing the end of November, but you can still have good weather, October, November for paving. It's happened. I think last year we had, Robert put one out with a scratching of, I don't remember what road that was.
Richmond.
So must we meet to approve this prior to the next meeting, I guess is where I'm headed.
The question would be if you want to limit it to the budget, I think you could probably award it or conditionally award to the low bid based upon the budget of 140.
We have a cap, that's what you're looking for, to confirm the cap.
I think that's the question, is it, do we,
I mean, it's up to the three of you. I would want a motion authorizing somebody to review the bid and award the contract. So, I mean, the board could delegate that to the chairman, the board could delegate that to Jen. I think you should.
I hate to approve something without seeing the bid.
And we do.
So, I mean, if we want to have a meeting in between.
so to that point, we
Then you
thought
have to
about,
have a meeting.
you have this meeting right now. How far is the advertisement for a special meeting?
Well, it's like 72 hours.
So we still have time to decide here if you want to have that special meeting before we even receive the bids.
I would prefer to have.
Me too. We're all on the same page. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah. So again, we'll tabulate that as soon as we get it, put that around so everybody can see
So
it, then decide.
Alan Meyer is the only one bidding?
Alan Myers is the only one who hasn't picked up. I'm guessing, I'm not sure everybody that has picked up will submit a bid. I don't know, this time of year, they may just say our schedule's too full, but there has been 4 contractors that have picked up.
Did they pick it up?
Yeah,
Well, that's good.
so there's 4 that I think you probably at least get 3 to bid.
More the better.
Yeah, that's my concern, is we're getting to the end,
Yeah.
and we're not gonna get value.
They were not,
And then if we're not gonna get value, then I wanna pull the plug till next year and add it to that project. We don't have to spend our money this year. I just wanna make sure we're getting value, and I guess
Absolutely.
that's my concern.
if there was a hard deadline at October 31st, I don't know if we would get it. Because they said we're squeezing and everything else. but they keep-
Because I've seen it, everybody's busy.
so-
Yeah.
Okay.
It's changed, they used to shut the blacktop plants off 15th of October in the old days. They run them, sometimes they run them all around this.
Yeah, so that's just a discussion we wanna have when you get the bids back. And
Yep.
Be withdrawing, we'll just have an additional meeting.
And that's
I'm okay with that. That's fine. Okay, perfect.
Okay.
Southview.
The Clean Water Fund is something that the Conservation District has. You can submit an application for reimbursement. In this case, it's the emergency repairs. They can reimburse up to $11,000. Dean touched on that briefly when he was here. There's quite a few thousand there that is reimbursable. And I think there's actually a possible rental charge there that might not have been added in yet, that we gotta do that, but unless there's any objections, we're looking to just have Jen submit that to them. See if they would pay the cost involved.
Yeah.
I don't know why we wouldn't.
Yeah.
The other thing I brought up, they have a natural resource conservation services program that just started this year. They will look at this and have their engineers come up with a design, and possibly if there's residential structures close enough to the creek, which in this case there is in that area, they may do this. They may look to making it a project. That's not a fast one. They said by start to finish, probably have a year there, but they had somebody in the area and I asked Dean to have him go over and look at it from Timothy to, I think, Park, really, in that area. And he was familiar, so I haven't heard anything back, but it was at least while he was there to take a look at it. I didn't think that hurt. So,
I think that's the only way you can approach a project like that,
yeah,
you know, because it's all private property.
to that point, I agree completely.
Are you looking for a motion to approve this request?
The clean water fund, probably wouldn't hurt. It's reimbursement completely of money, if nothing else.
Yeah, I think the submission should be approved.
I'll make a motion, we approve the submission. All in favor?
One quick thing, just to discuss it. Jen has received an email. I'm sorry. It was John Zukowski, Salem Springs Road. He had submitted for a permit. He's working through DEP for his permit. They're required to submit a notification to the municipality. He's installing a stabilized stream crossing to be used for agricultural activities. Crop fields are landlocked by surrounding developments, and only access to crop field on north side of stream is to drive through the stream. And they want to provide a permanent stable crossing with stable approaches on both sides. I don't necessarily see that there's any concern on the township's end if he's going through DEP and making sure it's permitted appropriately, but if the township had any comments, they need to provide comments to DEP in 30 days. And just bringing that up since it was submitted.
The crossing would be on private property.
Correct.
Yeah.
To connect two of his fields, it seems like, so I think he was already doing it, this is to stabilize it.
Yeah, they don't like you driving across the creeks anymore.
I don't have any comment.
I don't have anything else.
All right. Solicitor's report.
Yeah, you have our report. We have filed a couple of additional liens on some of the larger accounts, and we have a couple that are scheduled to go to hearings at the District Justice. The ones that we recently filed liens on, I'd like to wait about a month to see if we get any kind of reaction from the property owner after they're notified of the filing of the lien. And if we don't get any positive response, then next month I'm going to ask you for authorization to file a civil complaint on those that we recently filed liens on. But I don't have any action I'm asking for tonight. Is there anything that you have any questions on? Okay, so that's it for this month, and I will likely have follow-up action to request from you next month.
All right, sounds good.
Condemnation actions, we're not quite as far along as I had hoped, but we're getting close to making the payment into court. The judge wants us to prove that all of the required notices were given back in 2006 and 2007. And Attorney Grimm's file did not have a proof of publication for one of the actions from the Reading Eagle. So what I found out was that when the Reading Eagle was sold, the new company did not take possession of the archives. So I was able to track down a copy of the publication of the notice at the Berks History Center. Berks History Center took possession of the archives of the Reading Eagle. So it's a good thing that they did that, because we're going to be able to prove to the judge that Attorney Grimm sent all the required notices out, published everything. So anyway, we're making progress on that. I think we'll get it wrapped up in the next couple of weeks. I've been working with Jen on getting the check for the money.
Yes.
Is that, that's on the list?
Yes, it is.
So I'm going to take that check along if it's ready to pay the proprietary the amount that we had determined the value was from the appraisal that we got. So anyway, it's moving along. We're making progress. It's not finished yet though. Any questions on that?
Nope.
All right. We had talked last month about the zoning hearing board decision on the authority project, and I don't have anything new on that. I mean, I'm assuming that because the authority has filed an appeal to Berks County Court, that they're gonna try to bring that to a prompt resolution. And the board had decided, I guess a month or two ago, that we were not gonna participate in that appeal. So the zoning hearing board will have to defend its own decision. Are there any questions about that? But I don't have any additional information at this time.
I do not.
All right. All right, next item is the burning ordinance. We had some discussion about possibility of making some revisions to the existing burning ordinances that the township has in effect. And we had provided to Jen some samples for your information based on what some other municipalities that we work with have on the books. But my understanding was that Jeff and Michelle had talked about a specific amendment that you might consider.
That you eliminate it from the R1 zoning district.
Yeah,
That's the easiest way to address it.
So I guess what you're talking about, Jeff, would be to say no open burning period in a certain zoning district.
With the exception of, recreational campfire.
So no trash burning. It would only
No
be,
burning of any trash.
it would only be burning wood as a backyard campfire.
I mean, I think you have a good burning ordinance. I like your burning ordinance. Just in this particular situation, you're allowed in the R1 zoning district. It's the R1 zoning district that in some spots has got to the point where it's not practical for people to be burning.
And is that recommendation based on the density in that zoning district? Because I'm thinking you could also do it based on lot size. But there are a lot of smaller lots that might be in other zoning districts that don't have the same density and really aren't causing a problem.
Correct.
So if the R1 is the area where you're concerned about the density, not the lot size, then by prohibiting it in that zoning district, you would effectively eliminate the nuisance within the most dense area of the township.
Correct.
Is that a position that you want to take? Do you want to go down that path? If you do, then I would prepare an amendment to the burning ordinance to bring back to you.
Almost sounds like it makes too much sense, but I really have to look at that.
Yeah. The R1, I think makes sense. We just want to look at the, if you want to review the map, but
Yeah, but I would probably think in favor of it, because it just make it a lot easier.
Yeah, all I wouldn't mind seeing is if you're gonna do that, whatever that zoning district is, which I imagine is right across from Willow Creek and all of Walltown, is possibly send something to the residents saying that this has been changed and you're not allowed to burn trash, period. That's the only thing I would like to see. That way, when they call it in, we're coming up, rolling in, and the police have the same footing, that, hey, this was changed. Can't do it anymore. That way, they're already notified about it. If it happens, then you can get them right away, because we know we've been having this problem for months with some of the neighbors now.
How many properties are in that zoning district? Does anybody have a guess? How many lots?
well, it's not a lot. It's
Are you talking about R1 or are you talking about R2? Also,
R1.
what's your definition of R1? Do you
Well,
know?
it's a designated
It's a half acre.
geographic area.
It's a half
So,
acre
no,
lot.
it's a designated area
Right.
on the zoning board.
R1 is the north side of Southview. R2 is the south side.
That's R2 over there between Park and Southview.
Might have to look at burning even allowed in the R2 zoning district.
R2 is a quarter acre.
Yeah, I don't even think it's allowed in the R2 zoning district. It's already been.
Which, is that, I don't
I don't have the
seeing
ordinance.
I don't recall that the,
I don't recall seeing that in the targeting ordinance.
That's part of the consideration.
Yeah.
We're gonna look at
I'm pretty
changing it,
sure
make
R1's
you're
the
not
half acre.
overlooking a small area right next to it or something.
Exactly.
That's why it says it doesn't have to be that
Oh, you got it.
definition.
Well,
In R1,
you have to be at least 50 feet from a structure on an adjacent property. So,
Yeah,
that 50-foot setback,
Right. I mean,
de facto prohibition of the R2.
I can smell somebody's burning.
So before we do it, let's just make sure we get it right.
Sure.
That's what I'm saying. Make sure, I mean,
All right, so would the next step then be for the board to review that zoning map, or is there something that you want Jeff and me to do?
I think Jeff, review the map, and we'll send out a copy with us, and then let's discuss it before we make that
Yeah, I
step.
definitely think we should wait another month. before we-
Yep.
We can have a discussion.
Doesn't
We
have
want
to
to
be
go
done
for
right.
it.
Okay, all right, so we have an action step on that. And then, next thing is, we had some conversation about the possibility of this township, or this board of supervisors being kept up to date about the warehouse project in Maxtoni, behind the airport diner. Actually, it's gonna include the airport diner, they would tear that down. It's very close to this township. Do you wanna receive information about that? And if you do, then I would ask for a motion that you do a right to know request and ask to receive the letters, the review letters from the Max Twenty engineer, something like that. I mean, we represent that township, but I would prefer not to be the conduit. I would prefer that you initiate something and it go from that township to this township office.
I think we should know.
We should know what hurt them. Because it's gonna impact us with traffic and everything else. I don't know what we can say, we can just make suggestions or opposition or.
Well, it's up to you. I mean, you can become involved actively if you want to. But I assure you, there's gonna be a lot of other folks.
Yeah, I don't know about that step yet. I just wanna be in the loop,
Well,
maybe.
It's gonna be,
Yeah,
it's gonna be a lot of activity.
so I make a motion that we ask for the right to know for the warehouse project.
For the review letters.
For the review letters for Mexico.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
All right.
I think Max County Solicitor pretty rough.
This is causing gray hairs in my house. And along with the other warehouses. Anyway, anything else for me? Brad, do you want me to bring up the other thing that you talked to me about as part of my report, or are you gonna bring?
No, I was just here, I mean, the real reason I was here is when I clicked on the agenda, I don't know if the link was wrong or what happened. I couldn't get the updated agenda, so I was just interested. I had a free Monday night, so I figured I'd come spend it with you guys, so. Wanted to see
Sick individual.
see what was going on, so that was the real reason I was not planning on bringing any of that up in public.
All right, that's fine. Okay, I'm done.
Okay, nothing from Stackback, nothing from Miscellaneous Roadmaster. Rob, anything you wanna go over?
The only thing, we talked about the roadwork earlier, Chris had said something about advertiser or whatever we must do for that meeting. The bid opening is Friday. can we set something up for Friday?
Yeah, I mean, if,
Friday, this Friday,
Yeah,
well, I mean, I'm, Friday's not gonna work for me,
okay.
but Monday would.
If not, I just see that rather, the sooner the better, since we're sort of.
Yeah, I'm okay with that. You guys okay with
I'm
it?
flexible.
Are you okay with Monday?
Afternoon.
What?
Afternoon.
I think I'm okay all day on Monday.
So I have a meeting at 6 that night. But
do you need us?
I was gonna say, going into this, if
If you
we
put-
write up if we provide our recommendation, if nothing more, a bid tabulation, so you guys see the numbers.
That's all I think that's just,
The
what's the
budget
number
thing
in
from
your,
there.
yeah,
And
and
you
then
just
Robbie's
let me know.
input. We just don't wanna
As long
sign,
as
we just don't wanna sign a blank.
You advertised it so they can pick and choose among.
It says it may be 1, 2, 3, but it also says per budget constraints, so really it's up to where that lands you. If it comes in too high and you can't do any of them, then
Well, if there's a question on how to proceed, as long as you're not calling at 6 PM, and I got a meeting at noon, as long as your meeting's not at either of those two times, if you need to talk to me or the engineer, you can just call us.
Okay.
yeah, I'll provide a letter and a spreadsheet that'll break down everything we got, so.
It would have to be after 2:00 for me.
I'm open all day, so you guys pick.
Anytime, early afternoon, you tell me. 4:00.
4 o'clock. Jen?
4:00.
It shouldn't take long.
No,
I'll review everything with Scott on Friday and.
Right. Give us your
see the
send it to
numbers.
us,
Yeah.
send it to us with your recommendation and we're prepared for Monday.
No, I can do it tomorrow morning.
So Monday at 4 PM.
Motion, second.
I'll make a motion.
what's that?
All in favor?
The only other thing really is, I met with a member from UGI to discuss the gas line over on Timothy.
Uh-huh.
They would like us to, propose a plan, blueprint, whatever you want to call it. And they are willing to move their gas line.
There you go.
So
Make the job easy.
we'll have to get together and come up with
Where was
something.
that years ago? It's,
That's terrific. So we can proceed.
that's the plan.
So I'm thinking that's something that we'll try and get completed for next year.
That would be
So
the
as part
sooner
of-
the
as part
better.
of-
How are we addressing it now? I mean, it's the edges. Did you stabilize the edges?
Yeah, there's some rock there, we put some blacktop in, sort of just piecing it together as each storm goes through.
And I know it's challenging because there's just one way in and one way out. It's gotta be split. You guys can figure that out, how to do that, because we can't just close the road.
Yeah, that was
Well,
part of what
I'm
Robert's
almost
been pointing out
thinking
from
that
the start.
It
It's
would,
gonna be.
maybe talking with the contractor, maybe if it could be on an accelerated timeline to do the project, then we could potentially make a temporary road through, David Mills Field out onto Southview Road. I feel like that would speed things up, not having to do half the road at a time.
Yeah. This is a box coverage, you do the whole thing at once.
Right. So,
Yeah, but you can't split it in two. One half to the other.
well, you can.
That's
I'm
above my,
just saying-
that's
I'm
above
just
my
saying-
pay grade.
I don't think the road's big enough to do it that way.
Yeah, it's not,
don't.
it's not very big.
As long as you come up with a plan, we wanna get it done. That is a consideration. And get it done correctly.
I've had projects like this where you just notify the residents that they can only be on one side of the
Get out.
bridge.
Stay
you know?
out.
Two houses.
We warned you.
Right. I mean,
Nine.
And you also had emergency medical situation.
Fire.
Yeah, fire.
To be honest, the worst part of it's gonna have to be the hurry up and wait for the permitting.
Yeah.
Because they're just not going through quickly right now, but that's part of it, that would be.
Well, how long would the road closure be? Is it more than 24 hours?
Yeah. Yeah, because the other part of it is too, when they start doing the digging, UGI has asked that they try to coordinate their lowering of the main at the same time. That gets a little complicated, but that's gonna make it a bit of a project. For sure.
Did he confirm it goes right down the middle?
It favors the left side going in,
But it's under the roadway.
yes.
Well, to that point, maybe we could just shift it and make it work for a little while, but
They said that they could shift and then part of the box culvert could be done and they were willing to do that, but yeah, it all depends on what the contractor would say as far as the timeframe. I'm thinking that it could be up to 2 weeks that it would be closed for the contract.
just from the past, they don't love having UGI work in their work zone once it starts. But if we're putting that in the contract, then it is what it is and they have to.
Just so you
But
guys are
it's-
aware of all the challenges.
Yeah, it's kind of a tight spot, but short of that, it's,
But we want
the
to,
gas line was the big, that's a huge.
we want to move forward as expediently as we
Okay.
can. All right, that's it, Rob?
Yeah, that's all I have. I mean, obviously the roof is done. I'm gonna get some prices on getting the downspouts and gutters. And, I was told that we should maybe, upgrade the size of the gutter to like a commercial. I think it's like a 6-inch or something like that. So we're,
Especially this, geez, man, this last couple months, oof,
yeah,
you can't go big enough.
so that's all I have.
All right, thanks, Robbie. Payment of the bills.
General funds, we have check numbers 11093 to 11133, including EFTs for $219,550.37.
Make a motion to pay it. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
State fund, there were no checks. Light fund, check number 2163 for $744.71.
Make a motion to pay it. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Sewer fund, check numbers 3125, 3131, including EFTs for $24,328.72.
Make a motion to pay it. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Walnut Town Fire Escrow, check numbers 2167 and 2168 for $23,364.85.
Make a motion to pay it. Second.
All in favor? Aye.
Virginville Fire Escrow, check number 2167 for $741.
Make a motion to pay it.
All in favor? Aye.
I have included in your packets the healthcare renewal. The current plan that we are on right now went up pretty substantially. I don't know if you want to stay with that one or go with one of the lesser options.
It's not a substantial savings, I don't think, over the others. Any questions?
It's in that packet there, Sam.
This one,
Yep, red sticky note there.
Red
if you open
sticky
that up.
sticker open.
I didn't get these stickers. Go. In the fine print. They're remarkably similar. I see. I don't really see an advantage of making changes. Is there something I missed there? I mean, deductibles are very similar, everything's. It comes as no surprise if it's up.
Right.
60%. Yeah, it's,
Cheaper than what, right?
yeah, it's, I mean, it's competitive here.
Well, yeah,
It's not bad.
all of them are close except the one.
I make a motion, we just accept the renewal.
Oh,
All in favor?
And we do have the minimal municipal funding obligation worksheet for the pension plan. And the paper that I have attached there is the assets that we have, that is what the new Nationwide is now taking their funding from, is the assets itself, we're not paying something.
That seems to be correct.
It's just a formula, straightforward.
Make a motion, or we have to accept this?
Mhm.
Make a motion that we accept the pension plan.
I was like,
All in favor?
The Berks County Convention is having their annual convention on Thursday, October 19th, from 5 to 9:30 at the Ole Fair Center, if anyone is interested. You need to let them know by October 1st.
I think we should do that. I'm not gonna commit this, but
You're missing a good night.
I think it would be nice, but maybe. Do we have to make a motion if someone wants to go?
Costs money, yes.
You guys wanna go at all?
Here, I've got it. No, I'm not going, it's just, that's bad.
That's me too. I would love to go, it just doesn't seem like it works out.
I would have trouble making that tough. I'm all the way up, like all time that weekend. I'm gonna say if you guys on vacation too, so whatever. Just keep getting done.
Tax collector breakout session.
When's the deadline?
October 1st,
I'll let you know.
Okay. That's fine.
Sure, I'm not gonna have to travel every day.
And I know we have a little bit of time left, but I just wanted to let you guys know on the PC board, Ken Schlegel's term ends in January 2024. And Ron Kurtz is up, his term expires January 2024 for the zoning hearing board as well. So those will be two of them that we will have to reappoint, to choose to.
Reappoint, we'll just have to strong arm them. Strong arm since they're here. Expect that phone call.
Other than that, that is it.
Okay.
Right, if any of you were to go out onto that Ole Fair thing, just make a motion, authorize any of you who choose to attend to go at the township expense. I don't know, none of you have said you can go.
I would like to go.
I might be open, so.
Yeah, I'll make that motion.
No, sorry.
All in favor? Aye. We just have to let Jen know by the first.
Yes.
Is it informative?
He says he always presents a program. I think we're gonna talk about EMS a little bit this year. Because that's becoming more and more of an issue.
We've heard it here tonight.
Yeah, it would hurt to go. All right, I don't have anything for the chairman's report. I do have one thing. We are moving forward, trying to get a meeting set up between Grande and the township, trying to do something with the open space. We're trying to set up a meeting for next week and hear back from dates, but we are moving forward on that, trying to get that open space utilized. Other than that, we call it public participation from the floor. If not, we'll call an executive session. Oh, go ahead.
Quick question, on Dryland Road, I know it's state road. Is there anything that can be done, maybe asking the state for help, or you checking with property owners about numerous dead trees along the edge of the road that are hazardous to the wires and stuff? I mean, I live there and it's like, just last month, there was 11 days, I didn't have no phone or internet service because the tree tore the phone wires down. Yeah, you know, the electric company, it's like, you go for 2-3 days sometimes. I mean, it's a real big hassle, and it'd be nice if we could get rid of the dead trees before they fall on something.
They are reactive, they're not proactive.
Yeah, I know, but it is, I mean, there's quite a few of them in that stretch that's on my deck in there. I mean, I know there's other property owners there too.
It's gonna become a real issue in time. More of these ash trees start to come down.
Well, that's what it is. It's mostly ash trees.
I think Robbie does a great job on our township roads.
Yeah, with the state, that's a different animal.
Yeah, but the state, we've had no success, zero.
We've reached out.
And then you're dealing with a lot of those poles are owned by Verizon. And they sub them to Med Ed, and the whole thing is just, the only time you get them to come out, if you're lucky, is if they take the poles down or take the wires down. If they take the wires down, you don't get much reaction, but if you take a pole down, they usually show up.
The only reason they actually showed up this last time for the wires is because I called and complained that I didn't have no phone service.
Yeah, well, you were lucky.
Otherwise, they wouldn't even bother.
No, they're disappointed. But, just haven't had any luck. It's not for lack of trying too, I mean, it's tough. But, all you can do is call. That's all you can do, as far as I know.
All right, are we gonna adjourn? Go ahead.
I just noticed recently, like with our issue on Southview with the stream and stuff, but if you go like a mile down the road, I know like that's in Maiden Creek and by their park, they're in there in that stream and they have, I don't know, hundreds of feet of reclamation.
I just said that.
And I'm like, what are
that.
we doing wrong that they are able to just, I mean, they're excavator and they're moving rock and I was just there on Saturday and it looks like you just spread gravel, like river rock, the whole way down through there. Water's flowing clear. I mean, they weren't working, but
Listen, I just
I'm
said
like,
that to Sam when I came in tonight. We're gonna reach out to Maiden Creek Township.
Is that their property? And
It is.
and they're able to just, but they're in the stream.
Exactly.
And how did they, I mean, I think it came from the July flooding. And here we are, what, 2 months? They've been in there for, I don't know, a week and a half or 2 weeks.
Yeah.
And they're going hundreds of feet.
I think it was 2-3 days before we submitted for that emergency permit, DEP came out and said, hey, we're accepting applications for emergency permits, which I thought emergency permits were accepted at any point in time. That's kind of what the emergency, but that's.
I know when they did that flooding, they did some emergency declaration, because I know a bunch of houses in the bottom end of Limestone Village there, which is at the bottom of that park, had water in their basement. I mean, it ripped down through, it ripped everywhere. But I'm just like, what did they do? There's got to be something that you guys could talk to them and say,
Yeah, I just said.
what route did they go and what could we
Well, it was
learn?
either through this emergency permitting that they got much better with, Either that or they just did.
I think that storm in July, it had so many problems that he sent out that notification saying, yes, we're accepting emergency permits, just to make it more widely known of these, because it went to all the municipalities, so that people were aware. I would guess that's what.
I mean, I got behind my garage, you guys know, because it's full. I could remove it, but I won't, because you said it a couple times in this meeting, I'm not touching it.
Yeah, legally, you're not.
Without a permit.
Right. Yeah, I know, that's why it's gonna stay the way it is.
They must, and it's their property too, so that
That
helps.
makes it a lot easier, yeah.
But it would be interesting to know.
I'd like to know too.
So we are gonna reach out. We just talked about it.
All right, just so you guys
We
are
seen
aware
it,
that that's
it's like-
happening in the area.
Yeah,
and
it was like,
It
geez.
should be an easy, information should be, I think, easily obtained of maybe how they did it. Or,
And they did a real nice job too.
yeah,
They put a face on it.
All right, are we gonna, have a call for an executive session? What's that? Yeah, and then, well, should we just have it at your office, Jen? Sure. Okay, we'll be back from the executive session.
Just go to enforcement. No, this is just.
Okay.
I got a little screen that's all Timothy and everything.
Unless you know something about junk cars.
You want who?
Junk cars.
It was
No.
before
There's
July,
things that we could do.
2.5, 3
picture of my
feet
drinking
behind my
I
garage.
do.
And it
That was
deposited
from last week.
to the point where
That wasn't from this one.
Sunday when I came home, we must have got some rain. It was coming out, and then the one spot, it was going down across the neighbors, just, clear water, but it was.
Didn't give me
The weird part was,
Not right away.
and I told my daughter, I went out Saturday morning, I went out back to work, and there was just a real low flow. And the stream, because there's a little hole right there, there's a bunch of fish. And I was watching them up,
I will,
maybe
I
like
think
crack corn.
Wednesday we have a meeting
And,
with them. to talk
I went
about
to
the
Philly
impact.
Airport, picked her up, and
But I think
got
I'm gonna
back
take
at 1
everything
o'clock.
here.
I said, that
I'm gonna make a
flow
list of what
is
we're
nearly
saying.
double what it was this
Spot
morning,
on the-
and the
on the
water
site.
was
Because the last time I
brown.
brought it up,
I mean,
it was
brown.
a big
I
meeting with
said,
everybody
now,
in the conservation
It didn't
district.
rain Saturday
And they
morning
were the
when I was
ones
gone,
up and said, hey,
because we got back.
what are you guys doing about the
I was like,
neighbors receiving?
It just leads me to
They
believe
said, well,
that
we're
somebody
doing some
upstream
testing.
is doing
We're looking
something.
into this. We
Because for-
understand it's,
From 2002,
concern of
when I
what's
moved
in
in,
the
we
water,
would get
and it
some
wasn't
flooding, we would
necessarily
get
still that,
some
and
rock
no,
that would move down.
it's these guys
But
want
nothing
water.
more than
What are you doing?
maybe
to
a
test it?
pickup load or so.
And they said,
In the last
well,
4
we're
or
looking
5
into that,
years,
and they
since
said- and
2020,
that was when I
really,
jumped on board and said,
It's-
if you are worried about going
it's
into
been
property and asking for.
triaxle loads.
I said,
and it's sand
"The
and
only thing you
rock
haven't done is ask.
and large
We will
rock,
allow you to do
and it
what
just
you need to do."
blows down through, and then like just sand.
Oh,
Like I said,
I
that hole now,
assume they-
from
That's my guess. is they probably-
Sunday
Did she
and
ever-
today,
Did that guy ever get
it
back
was,
No, it didn't. That lady,
Really?
she was gonna meet with
it's
me. I had
now.
my phone even. Can't wait to meet
probably
you on
a
August
foot,
3rd.
foot and a half. I mean, I can fill a pickup and he's shooting
So
out.
what happened
It's like,
there?
where's it all come
And
from?
we did the stop work that goes through the park. We found out she works
No.
with DEPCOM, which is the site company.
No, because the one that goes through the park comes
Was not
down
relaying any of
at the
these
sewage
complaints.
plant,
They-
and
they
then
relayed
goes
that the Hillstone
back
was the energy.
by,
And
into Maiden Creek
after
and
we
Eli
stopped working,
Timmerman's
so there
under
was
Pleasant
other
Hill.
issues that you guys are not being responsible.
Ours goes,
That's when Hillstone said, okay, DEPCOM.
and on a normal day,
Jump in more.
you
And
could,
unfortunately.
if you could cut open a 5-gallon bucket and place
The
it
other guy
there,
showed
you
up.
could, probably a 4-inch pipe would take it all.
David
What normally was,
Anderson.
I mean, because
And he should have been.
at the beginning of the week,
I'm gonna call
like
out
a week
meeting.
ago,
Right at the beginning, they said,
it's almost like just trickling
sending me letters. and
down through.
sending it to
But it goes down
discharge through-
across the south view in a box culvert.
Somebody should.
It does like a dog leg line
I mean,
through
I got
my 2
two letters,
properties
but it's
and then down
helicopter
towards
back.
Bogey,
Oh, my
Timothy. and then joins up with that, some of those trees there, I don't know. Like I said, you know,
Yeah.
I'm a firm believer that your property is, so, I said, I know for a fact, I could just watch the water, like you see the water, and then like all of a sudden one night or something, it'll be like foamy, and it's like, it looks like somebody's discharging like wash water into it, you know? So I'm like, there's something, but I said, I've often went, because I showed my daughter, I said, when we came down Park Road, I said, just look up in here, that's where the stream. I said, it's nothing up here. I said, you know, there's like, it's like trees on both sides and stuff where it comes on the south side of Park Street. I said, but somewhere up there, somebody puts it. I said, but I wouldn't just go and walk across people's property, just walk on the stream and go. But I think the township, the investigator, figure it out, might have the authority. I mean, I don't know.
With where you're telling me, that stream goes up.
Oh, it goes up.
It goes up Walnut Road on the right hand side. Up through there.
Forwarded it to.
Yeah, there's a bridge on there. There's two guys fighting. Once you get up past Village Motors,
So
there's like that
my
manufacturing house on the right hand side. If you turn in there,
Stuart, did you get a
go
copy
all
of that?
the way in,
Yeah,
all the way back
an
in
email
there.
that we can.
There's a bridge
that I should get.
there on the white house.
If you don't mind, because one thing that I have to tell you is, once you start to paper trail, they can't. That's one thing I've learned too. I mean, whether it's my business, like with our company, or just personally recommending. So if you do that, then they can't.
So I wouldn't be surprised
And where he's gonna.
Drive
follow
up
up
Stewart Lane all the way in the back here, somebody's.
I think you guys should be calling trees.
That's why out of sight, out of, you know. Like I said, if I knew that I wouldn't get in trouble for just removing the debris, I would just remove
I'm
it.
gonna
On the
start
bottom of my
figuring out
property,
DP,
it's
who's gonna be
like
responsible.
grass.
Cause somebody,
And,
we
well,
sent it
in
to.
2020,
Had the clean water.
we
Can't
stood up
believe
there.
it.
August 2nd and
It's
August
just
4th,
like,
we
it's
went.
just
When I was third, I was
frustrating how
I stood up by the box match and I said, what
I
permit
think
do you
we
need
need
to
to
put a swale?
really start here.
And he said, don't
I
get
don't
carried away.
understand that,
Don't get
but I
carried
will
away with what
on
you're doing. And I had contacts
Like I said, I wish.
on Thursday, I got word that I could go and
Everything
haul
that
as
we're
much
talking
clay
about.
dirt as I
They're
wanted
gonna
to.
talk
And I
about,
took
really
all the
just
topsoil
and
on the road,
that's the stuff they
put
wanna
it
talk
on
about.
box.
So I'm
I shot it 6 inches higher than the center line of the road.
And list
Then I
off, we gotta
filled
start a punch list.
a
Like,
big
here's the
swale,
things we need to
and I
talk
covered it, and I did it
Where are
like
you
in
with
September, and I got it seeded as quick as I could.
That's receiving the water. You were
In July,
testing and
they
how-
said their water,
Carry out
my son stood in front of
even
the
after
stone
you
house,
leave.
and there was a debris
And
line on the top
not
of
trying to
that,
be
just
rude
like a
about it,
little
just
bit of
he's
thing,
still
you know,
waiting
like
for the
floaty
call.
stuff.
He's asking
And
us,
he's
we
like,
have no.
the water has to be
Where's that? And I just wanted.
2 feet deep going down the street. And they said every house down the street, it was like white caps coming out around the house because that girl, that shed collapsed in. Well, I sat on the road. I mean, I had one time I was a push mower on the backhoe of my tractor. I brought it up out, siding, and then we got the water to go through the box culvert and dry out down the road.
When the worst came like today, his kids were
In
down
front of
there
your across the
playing.
street, the mobile there, that whole bottom cover.
Yeah.
Nothing now, and
I mean, it took a 5-inch
Yeah.
rain to.
All in
play it, but yeah, I have.
2020,
and
he had to have
even when
5 years.
jack it up because it was sad. The roof line, because it was salt for days, because until then, it took them quite a while to go in and just
you look something,
dig a
I'll
stream
bet
bed
it's,
back in.
it's wearing out.
Now, this time they were a little bit quicker.
Requirements of a 20-inch subsoil.
I really think we need to get rid of the rocky sandy stuff, and they need to get that clay
So that was
in there.
DEP.
If you can have banks and have grass pretty much down to it, and we'll just.
So that was why they actually said, don't show me.
You'd be good,
And it
but
was.
you gotta figure out.
It used to be.
I think the best route would be to
He
have
had
like.
worked through the design. And the
pools, ponds, that people would
They actually
allow
put a lot
where
more
the
thought
debris
into
would
it.
settle,
What
and
else-
then you would just,
I was
you would
surprised
just,
once they started, because Karen reviewed
that area,
He's the
you
one
would just
who's involved.
reclaim.
Basically,
So you're not disturbing the whole
they
thing,
run
but
up
it would
through there.
collect the sand and the rock.
Basically,
It
just
would be the best route, but you
just a
gotta
big
get
wheel
those
track.
people on board to
the
do it.
back wheels on those things, I mean, you know, traction and I this haul. And that's what's pulling the tail. They're for the ripping, and they're ripping
I didn't know how it was.
twice for every row.
I said, well, this morning,
So every
I was
row
thinking
is
my place when I go
6,
down
7
to
feet
Pleasant
wide.
Hill and up,
So there's,
up over
there's
Walnut
3
Town.
or 4 blades. on
The
it.
water flowing down Pleasant
They
Hill was
run it,
almost
they
in
go
some
all the way
spots
around,
out
they
to
come back,
the
and they run it
yellow
again.
line.
The part that I did.
It was this, I mean, I had to kind of slow, a car was coming and it slowed down, let me get up to the close enough to the park that I could get on to my side of the road. But I was like,
I don't
the amount of
care,
water,
you gotta
I
do
was
it.
like, and I told
And they
them,
can
I said,
offset it by a couple inches.
prior to the sewer line going in,
Makes a difference to me.
about,
Because I didn't like what we were saying.
Now we'll take our GPS.
that
But they
water
are
didn't
when
come
they're
down
hitting it, when they're going.
Pleasant Hill.
I mean, it's.
Once the
it's
sewer
upslope,
was
you can
done,
see it lifting.
that's when the
As they go
water
Big
started coming down Pleasant Hill Road. I
So
said,
the
something
one thing I
about the
would
railroad
say-
tracks
Both-
split
both
that
days they did
water
it.
and made
It
more
was
come
a day or two
down
after
Pleasant
rain.
Hill.
And those blades are
down.
they're
So if you look at Walnut
real
Town now, like
blades.
where they,
I think
where
it's
the guy
got
dumped
so
the
quick.
RV
So
over the
I
side.
told them, I
So
recommend.
now they
you
have
do it
like
till
up
July.
above there.
Well, they dug that
They have
hole.
like a spillway
You need to be pulling
for
it.
the road and they have like a catch
They had,
So it's a straight, the 20 inches is pretty much straight blade.
inlet,
But then it's
a
got
box culvert.
bottom.
Yeah, the bottom of it has a little.
but they dug
It's kind of like that.
that whole road up to put a new box culvert in, a new thing. But the problem is, like, you go, like today, depending on how slow there was 2 guys running over the
I mean,
a couple
I
shovels,
literally, when they
and
were
clean
doing
the
this,
dirt,
I didn't
the
trust it.
twigs, because
I've
there's
got
leaves
a picture
and
of it.
a stick
Blade is
right
actually
at that
right
thing.
behind it.
So the
And they're
water
touching
now
it.
wasn't
It's
going
connected.
in that, now it's running across the road. And it's just all those little things that make the big things.
Where it's rocky on the ridges, like that.
No, and there is, there's a couple spots that I know when they're driving, hit piles,
Every time it rains, it's long.
and that, to me, that's
Yeah,
part of.
and there, it's terrible, because they had a,
That's, to me, that's another, I mean,
on
they're.
Walnut Town Road, but there
They
was
might be
a
hitting the rock.
a tree. Did you see the,
That's some
the
of
tree,
what's
and I don't
going
even, maybe, I'm sure it's not hanging there anymore,
I don't know.
but there was a tree hanging on the wire, a dead tree.
Piece of
Why
ash.
would you do this work before you-
Yeah, it was hanging there for
The amendments,
almost a
that's all
year.
the equipment
And
they have
West
to use
Manor,
to put in
Their,
the posts
supervisor
and then
down
bring out the panels and that, they were running over the amendments.
called
Impacting the heck out of it.
every
So the
other
thing was, you gotta do it afterwards, but on the
somebody
plan,
out
it
there
said,
to take this.
if they were compacting it,
Just hung.
more than minor
And
compaction.
their attitude is, well, it's on the wires,
It's on the wires.
and it wasn't
And they were
on
coming back
the
and
electric,
saying,
it
well,
was hanging on
20 inches.
the phone and the cable.
That's when they
and
said, no, stop.
There's just one
You can't meet
one
it.
wire,
Just
because
run
it
the
wasn't,
fans
that
on the
wasn't
shots,
even
make it
attached
go
to the
up.
pole. And there was a wire holding it,
That's where
and I'm like, all it's gonna take is enough wear on that wire, and that whole thing's gonna be laying on the road. And the
That's
thing is,
all
it's like,
their site
it's an
installation
issue.
on panels and
God
everything
forbid
is
if there were to
crazy.
be a car going by, and it wasn't a big branch, it was like probably 4 or 5 inches at the biggest port, but it was probably like
The problem was, is from the
20
start
feet
when they
long,
did
I mean,
it,
it was hanging.
They said they found out.
And
part of it, they
it's
got
like,
the money
if there was a
for how
car
much
going by,
everything is. That's when they realized.
and the
that
thing left
installed,
loose,
it cost millions
and
of
then that
dollars.
comes down on the
And
car,
they said, well, we wanna change this, so it's a little cheaper.
something could be
So
done,
now start
but
from scratch and come back. and
nobody wants to do
You,
it.
you show us, and they said, well, we wanna get this moving. And in the minutes from November of last year, they flat out says, Scott Anderson said, if you do this, you have to amend the plan.
Well,
Get a
I,
real,
But if I
possibly
start
for the planning
start
commission
building
supervisors.
supervisors, a lot of Schmidt will jump all over me.
The solicitor, Chris,
that's what,
back it up, saying,
In-
I go through and make sure that everybody
July.
approves it appropriately. And we were doing that.
Well, I got
It shows on
notice.
record saying, we're gonna cause your own
I think it
delays.
was August 4th, I had
And they came back and they wanted to amend it, that's when we said, stop it.
but they sent me 11 photos.
The whole
But
time,
some of
we
the
just wanted
photos were like
to get it
down
seeded, get it
through
grass and do it. but
on
327, where there was like
we don't know.
2 triaxle loads of
Why we let
rock
them go
and
forward?
sand in his yard.
Same thing.
And it's a picture of his yard, it's all
You guys can't say
sanded.
you're gonna do what's on the plans, then we don't.
He
want to.
removed all that, and there was a
They
picture
never
of
admitted
that.
it.
And then there's pictures of, like, behind my neighbor's barn, that's where the guy was. And
So,
then there's,
yeah,
like,
I would like.
then there's
if you could
photos
give me
of
the email.
You wanna write it down?
yard,
Yeah.
and my driveway, and that's how I
Do you know
knew
how she
because
writes it?
my
Yeah.
work
Do you
van
wanna-
was sitting
you wanna
there.
copy
And
yours too?
I took off it,
Copy.
on
Yeah.
July 28th. I'm like, you took the photos on Friday, July 28th, then you sat on my seat. Then the guy was going on vacation, so all his sports you issued notice of violation. And in the meantime, I said, half of my driveway was all mowed. I took the bucket, I ripped everything up and flat.
You didn't get by today to say.
And I said, the other half was
Today.
already done, but on August 1st, instead of working on it, I pushed my son and we went to
We're gonna have a
National.
mess if it rains in the winter. It's
I was like,
frozen.
I said, well, we can finish the driveway or we can go there. He's like,
Under Baldy,
I don't.
then it goes over to his field.
I just work like driving there.
Well,
We
work around and then
just
goes
to see what this is about. 'Cause I said, every year I see it, I'm like, oh, we should go check that out.
And then it crosses the other driveway then?
It's all. I don't see anything. All.
When there's a heavy rain,
Everything has been cleaned there.
Well, yeah, so the one is under Baldy, and it makes a big U through his field. And then to the back one, and through.
Is that the black pipe that goes into your driveway there?
Yeah, but that's a big rain, it can't accept it, so the water goes back across Baldy Road, across his foot, and then back across Baldy Road again. It's a mess. Yeah, it's something that just.
Yeah, I was out there and I saw it on Mercer Road, it was backed up on the east side, trying to flow through the west.
And
And
the
I remember
reason,
how they wanted it not coming from.
you know, he was here crying, I wasn't even so.
And the reason.
But that is what we're doing.
Yeah.
There's
$5,000 spent on our $5,000 a week.
And we can't do the same thing. Dirt. And he, it's like, it's laughable now because of all the water issues and we were ridiculed when this project started for, and then he. And anyway,
If you
but
watch Mark's meeting, he cuts me up to you because you said something about the neighbor. Water issues and he wasn't still there. This is better than ever. Oh, you guys are doing so good.
But
Yeah,
not
it's because you said that.
but it can't come from us. But bigger place, the 2 plates going under all the rocks on the other side, and then it would never go up all.
I said
So
something.
they have that.
Low density, this is our.
Probably gets more traffic in that too, but I thought I could just jump out real quick.
Yeah, what's giants in and stuff.
Yeah, then if there's warehouse at the airport.
By their definition.
But
Yeah,
that,
that's-
that on his back lane.
On what
I
our
told
zone
Jeff he
is.
should look at it.
Our ones.
I didn't realize.
He pushed the straw out.
Because you can't, by standing there.
See, I went through it because of what
I know what you mean.
Working
Oh,
on the house.
I know what you're talking about, and I didn't know if it did.
You wouldn't believe the
It's
amount of
probably the
water that
only
gets
one
by me
in
through
the
the
whole
hallway and
area
never makes it to his
that
back lane.
has
It
a
takes
half
a
acre.
lot of water to get
There's
this back.
some that get
When
kind
he
of
used to
close.
combine over there, I used
I
to
have
think
one that's
someday combine's gonna disappear. There's gotta be a hole over there where this water is
outside
just,
of this.
I mean, it can be gushing by me and it,
But other than that, everybody else is.
yeah, never makes it.
Yeah,
So a third.
Yep, that's, I know exactly which one.
Right, so when it can't get through there, because it's filled up, it's real high, it's like 3 feet high there. It hits there and goes.
So here it is. So this pipe, there's a good chance that that's just as high.
So if you're on
crossing Baldy,
the north side of South,
he's creating that place for the water sitting.
Maybe.
Until it's high enough.
right
Put
here,
it backwash
this is
before
R1.
it
But
goes
then
forward.
here's where
Over
that
on
back
south
south
side,
there's where the pipe
two.
goes across, you know, the water comes from the
Two.
main, And then,
Because the
yeah, that's
fire
fire
company is actually
on
like
the road. And then it basically, the water is around that
get
hill.
the Warriors here, those couple, then
Should be that way.
basically.
Small rain or fine, big rain.
So, you know, when he's saying
Goes
limiting in one month, I didn't know that.
So you can drive by now and look, there's.
More ag and farm around in R1 there in Walltown than it is. So I wanted to do work on my house. The only place in the township you can do it is Virginville, because Virginville is classified all, traditional neighborhood.
Today
And I was
was
like,
probably
I
one
really
of the
think
first
that's
days
a lot
that
of
water
water
has
town
made it this
should be,
bad.
because it's all mixed over
That's
there.
how I
I mean,
see it.
you've got the fire
It takes a
companies
lot to
in
get
part
there.
two.
By me,
You got
it's
farm, a little bit of farm.
There to
Oh, I
there.
saw it.
all is,
Glenhart,
it was soon, it was soon.
and then you got
Unless something's
mostly
broken. I said
just
something
smaller
about
properties.
2
And
pipes.
the problem is,
And he said they did that somewhere.
it was, LPL that did it. You
Sure.
trying to take
And
a
it
box
collects the dirt.
and get everything in the
Corn
fit,
fodder,
this
sticks and
definition,
stuff.
and it just,
Between
it
the
doesn't
two
work,
pipes
like the
instead of
properties.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Like, that's
I
not
said
the
what's that issue.
There's
You don't
lots
have, you don't have that
I'm
with
like,
one
well,
pipe at all.
Through the fence.
I said, no.
Nothing collects on this side, well, except for like all water
I
stops.
just ran it up to the stuff,
The corn fodder will
just to give them a little
float
space
on
instead of keeping
on our side that makes, but no, getting through.
It's
I
the-
had
It gets
four
through.
parcels
And that's-
over there, because the guy owned, he would just,
You would ask me, and
I actually own on the other side of the road, I almost owned that like 2-story house, like almost up to the front door.
I didn't really listen to it. till
I never
the
knew
day
that
I
until a few
figured
years
the
ago.
kids at school. I'm thinking,
You go on
just talk to you.
the parcel view, Berks County parcel
The
view.
last time you called about the water center.
Maybe the lines aren't
The
100%
next day I got
correct,
an
but
email.
close.
There was one email chain.
Close enough that like, when the zoning guys out, or
DEP
when
saying,
they're out
hey,
for
we're gonna do
complaining, they
another
can
site
go,
visit, and I think it's.
somewhere close to
now.
here is the property line.
And I responded saying, hey, can you
Takes
guys
about
please do me a
5
favor
minutes.
and look at the height crossing the roadway before and after it. There's some washout that has been occurring it wasn't before, and there's water sitting where I think it shouldn't be sitting. I said, if you're gonna do an
If I
inspection,
want
can you put some attention to that?
concrete.
And he said, yeah, we've seen that before, it seemed like it went away.
I don't know. I didn't
We'll take a
know
look
that.
at it. I said, yeah, please do, because I don't think it is going away.
What,
I,
like, I'd like to almost, I'm not gonna do it like tomorrow.
I think they need
But I'm
to
just
on your side.
thinking, because like even today,
You tell me, and yeah, you go in there if it's just constant, and make sure that.
like I almost
it's
got a
up,
couple
it's a lot
of
more
wash
level,
down, so it's not having
I
my
swept
sweat
the
down,
standing.
but back up.
But I think it's on.
We had a couple rains, washed her back down at her place, because that's where it
Like
pools.
we had a guy shoot the
But
line,
like the street kind of
thinking
comes
put
in at my
pipes in
place.
ourselves. I can't
Like
do
if
it.
I would salt cut that,
Pipe
put a
would
2
cross
by
my
now
back
and then
and
pour
pipe
concrete
the
down,
pipe
close.
Mhm.
Would that be?
The whole way.
Would it?
Cause if I'm gonna keep getting money.
They're correct. I mean, that's why I'm.
I can't do it.
We'll get a permit, say it's like a $50 driveway.
I don't know if you.
Right. I mean, I don't.
Oh, let them do it.
I don't,
Yeah,
but
well,
I'm trying
You
to,
can encourage them to do it.
you know, I'm trying to get, to educate and to do, that's what you're facing, like, I got notice of violation.
I put it on the conservation field and say, hey, we might be able to
He
do
did
it.
the road for a while.
Cause
And he
it's
never
coming
mowed
in by
the old
me,
lady,
and when
you
it
know,
comes
walks
into my
across
house, it's
his
too
property,
flat.
or
I even
had
dug a
snow,
ditch with a skid loader
moles,
just to
yeah.
try to
go
keep
down
it
there,
hey,
and
this
feed
is
this
like
tall, it's just a
Yeah,
little
small
section.
even if-
It's
even if
the
they
motor
don't
up,
do
we
it,
drive
they'll get
across
the-
them. Nobody cleaned them up.
Whoever, different
Like, that's what
organizations.
irritates
throw money
me,
at it.
is when
Well,
you
that
want
would
to
take care of it.
push
That
on
would take
me,
care of it. But
well,
well,
that's blatantly there, then I can stare at it, yeah.
because it's coming
To
in
me, it's
there
not
and
right.
it's
I
laying
just-
there too long and it sinks down in.
I say, I wanna live.
Yeah.
Like, I don't wanna.
Yeah, I'm sorry that you
I'll
want to
say,
take care of
It
it.
don't
People
surprise
have-
me at all to see that water coming.
You know, try to.
Seeing all
do
these
better.
panels over
That's
there
why I
and water
ask
hitting
questions,
them.
cause I like,
You know what
well,
I mean? It's
I'd like to.
it's just a
Yeah.
lot
Lot
of
They
runoff.
do move, they do move throughout where
Stone house.
they'll change that, but it's not more than what we each day. I mean,
That's a lot of runoff.
Just
so. All right, thanks.
Okay, we're back in session. Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll second.
All in favor? Aye.
Just to hear that.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's.
So they don't also do
He
it.
did, but stayed.
Yeah, he kind of was there, and as we went through the process with the other.
We had a flooding.